Welcome to Real Life English.
We're excited to help you learn English. Let's get started. Join us now.
Today we are going to talk about a problem almost every English learner has. You studied vocabulary for many years. You remember hundreds and thousands of words. But somehow when it is time to speak, your mind suddenly feels empty.
Yes, and if this sounds familiar, you are not alone. Many learners believe that learning more vocabulary will automatically make them fluent, so they memorize word lists, flashcards, dictionary definitions. But months later they realize something strange. They know many words, but speaking still feels difficult, still feels slow, still feels unnatural. And today want to explain why this happens.
The truth is simple. Language is not just vocabulary. Language is connection. Words rarely live alone. They live together in patterns, in phrases, in expressions. Native speakers do not build sentences word at a time. Their brain remembers groups of words, and when they speak, those groups appear automatically. That is why their speech sounds natural.
Let's imagine something. Think about the word decision. You probably know this word. Maybe you learned it many years ago. But if I ask you to make a sentence quickly, many learners hesitate because they learned the word alone. But native speakers learn the phrase, make a decision, not create a decision, not do a decision, but make a decision.
This idea is extremely important because English is full of these patterns. We say make a mistake, make progress, make money, make a decision. These combinations are called collocations, words that naturally belong together. When you learn these patterns, your brain learns how English actually moves, and suddenly speaking becomes easier.
Now imagine learning English differently. Instead of memorizing a single word, you memorize a full phrase. For example, instead of writing opportunity, you write, I had the opportunity to travel abroad. Now your brain does not store just a word. It stores a real idea, a real structure, a real sentence.
This is exactly how children learn language. Children do not study vocabulary lists. They hear phrases again and again and again. Little by little, their brain collects patterns, and one day those patterns start coming out naturally, without translation, without thinking. That is the real secret of fluency.
But unfortunately, many traditional classrooms teach English differently. Students memorize words. Students study grammar rules. Students translate sentences. But they rarely practice real phrases, real conversation, real communication. And after years of studying, they know English, but they cannot use English.
So today want to show the way you think about learning English. Stop asking how many words do I know. Start asking how many phrases can I use naturally. Because phrases are the real building blocks of conversation. And the more phrases your brain remembers, the faster your speech becomes.
Here is another example. Many learners say, I very like this song. The listener understands, but it sounds unusual. A native speaker says, I really like this song. Why? Because that phrase already exists in their brain. They have heard it hundreds of times, so when they speak, the phrase appears instantly.
Let's look at another situation that many learners experience. You read an article in English. You understand almost everything, maybe 90% of the words. You feel confident. But when someone asks your opinion about the article, suddenly cannot explain your ideas clearly. Your brain starts searching for vocabulary. Your sentences become slow, and you begin thinking, why is speaking so much harder than reading?
The answer is actually very simple. Reading and speaking are two completely different skills. When you read, our brain only needs to recognize words, but speaking is much harder. Your brain must create ideas in real time. It must choose the right words, and it must combine them into natural phrases. If your brain only remembers words but not phrase, speaking becomes slow and sometimes very stressful.
Imagine trying to cook a meal without knowing any recipes. You might know the ingredients: rice, chicken, vegetables, spices, but you do not know how they combine into a delicious dish. So cooking becomes confusing. Language works in a similar way. Words are ingredients, but phrases are recipes. When you know the recipes, communication becomes much easier.
Native speakers store thousands of these recipes in their brain. For example, listen to these common expressions. To be honest, at the end of the day, that reminds me of, I was thinking about. These phrases appear again and again in everyday conversations. And because they are native speakers can speak quickly without building sentence from zero every time.
Listening practice is one of the best ways to collect these phrases. When you listen to natural English regularly, your brain begins noticing patterns. At first you only understand them. Later you start remembering them. And after hearing them many times, your brain begins predicting them. Once your brain can predict a phrase, it can also produce that phrase during conversation.
This is why many English learners suddenly improve after watching movies or listening to podcasts frequently. They are not just learning vocabulary. They are absorbing the rhythm and structure of real English. Little by little, their brain builds a library of natural expressions. And when that library grows larger, speaking becomes faster and much more natural.
But there is another challenge many learners face. Even when they know phrases, they are afraid to use them. They worry about making mistakes, so they stay silent, or they speak very carefully. But language is like a muscle. If you do not use it, it becomes weak. Fluency grows through practice, through speaking again and again.
You do not need perfect grammar to communicate effectively. In fact, many native speakers break grammar rules during daily conversations. What matters is clarity, natural phrasing, and confidence. If your phrases sound natural, people understand you easily, and communication becomes a relaxed conversation instead of a stressful test.
Here is a simple exercise you can start today. Choose a short video, a short podcast episode. Listen carefully. Write down 3 useful phrases you hear, not single words, but complete expressions. Then repeat those phrases aloud. Try creating your own sentence, assessing them. This small habit can dramatically improve your speaking ability over time.
For example, imagine you hear the phrase, I totally agree. Instead of only understanding it, practice using it actively. You could say, I totally agree with you. I totally agree with that idea. I totally agree. That practice helps. Now the phrase becomes active. It becomes part of your real speaking vocabulary.
Another powerful technique is called shadowing. Shadowing means listening to a sentence and repeating it immediately. You imitate the pronunciation. You imitate the rhythm. You imitate the emotion. At first it might feel difficult, but with regular practice your mouth becomes faster, your pronunciation becomes smoother, and your speaking becomes more natural.
Shadowing works because it trains the skills at the same time. Listening and speaking. Your brain learns how natural English sounds, and your mouth learns how natural English feels. This strong connection between hearing and speaking is extremely important for developing real fluency.
Many learners focus too much on grammar. They believe a perfect grammar will automatically create fluency. But real conversation does not wait for perfect grammar. People speak quickly. They interrupt each other. They change topics. So fluency depends more on familiar phrases than on perfect grammar rules.
Think about your native language. When you speak, you do not think about grammar rules. You simply express ideas. Why? Because you heard those phrases thousands of times. Your brain memorized the patterns. And that is exactly the experience you want to build with English learning.
Another important factor is emotional memory. Your brain remembers things much better when emotion is involved. That is why stories are powerful learning tools. Movies, real conversations, personal experiences. When phrases appear inside meaningful situations, your brain stores them deeper and recalls them faster.
This is also why oral conversation practice is extremely valuable. Talking to real people creates emotion, sometimes excitement, sometimes nervousness, sometimes laughter. These emotions strengthen memory, and the phrases you use during real interactions stay in your mind much longer than phrases you only read in a textbook.
So if you want to improve your English speaking, change your learning strategy. Stop collecting isolated vocabulary words. Start collecting useful expressions, phrases that appear frequently in real conversations. Over time, your brain will connect these phrases together and your speech will become more natural and more fluent.
And one day you will notice something surprising. You start speaking without translating. Sentences come out faster. Your mind focuses on ideas instead of searching for words. That moment is the beginning of real fluency. And it happens because your brain finally understands how English naturally works.
Learning a language is not about perfection. It is about connection. Connection between words. Connection between ideas. Connection between people. The more natural patterns your brain recognizes, easier communication becomes. And the more confident you feel speaking English in real life.
So remember the key message from today's episode. Do not just learn words. Learn how words live together. Learn phrases. Learn expressions. Learn the rhythm of real conversation. Because fluency is not built from vocabulary lists. Fluency is built from patterns.
Now that we understand the problem, let's talk about solutions. Because learning English does not have to be slow, and it does not have to feel frustrating. When you start learning phrases instead of isolated words, something interesting happens. Your brain begins recognizing patterns much faster, and those patterns start connecting together. Little by little, your sentences become smoother, your ideas flow more naturally, and speaking begins to feel much easier.
The first strategy is something very simple. Collect phrases every day. Not hundreds of phrases, just three. 3 useful expressions you hear in real conversations. Write them down, repeat them aloud, and try using them in your own sentences. 3 phrases per day may sound small, but after 1 year you will have learned more than 1,000 natural English expressions.
The second strategy is repetition. Your brain needs repetition to build strong memories. When you learn a new phrase, do not read it unseen, forget it. Repeat it many times. Say it in different situations. Use it when you speak. The more times you use a phrase, the more natural it becomes. Eventually, your brain will use it without conscious effort.
The third strategy is active listening. When you watch a movie or listen to a podcast, do not only enjoy the story. Listen like a language detective. Notice how people speak. Notice the expressions they repeat. Notice the rhythm of conversation. Those patterns are the real treasure inside authentic English content. And every time you notice one, you add a new tool to your speaking ability.
Another helpful technique is recording yourself speaking. Choose a simple topic. For example, your favorite movie or your daily routine. Speak for 1 minute. Record your voice. Then listen carefully. You will notice which phrases feel natural and which parts feel difficult. This awareness helps your brain improve much faster.
Do not worry if your speaking feels slow in the beginning. Fluency is not built overnight. It grows gradually, just like learning to play a musical instrument. At first, movements feel awkward, but with practice, your hands become faster, your brain becomes faster, and suddenly what once felt difficult becomes natural. Language learning follows the same process.
Confidence also plays an important role. Many learners know more English than they realize, but fear stops them from speaking freely. Remember, communication is not about perfection. It is about sharing ideas. Even if your sentence is not perfect, people can still understand you. And every conversation is another step toward fluency.
Another powerful habit is thinking in English. Instead of translating thoughts from your native language, try describing things directly in English. For example, when you walk out to describe what you see. The weather is nice today. There are many people in the park. This simple exercise trains your brain to create ideas directly in English.
When you combine these small habits together, your progress accelerates. Listening to real conversations, collecting useful phrases, repeating them regularly, practicing speaking, and thinking in English. None of these steps are complicated, but when practiced consistently, they transform the way your brain uses language.
Many successful language learners follow this exact approach. They focus less in memorizing rules and more in absorbing patterns. They listen often. They speak often. They repeat useful phrases. Over time, their brain builds a huge network of natural expressions, and that network creates fluency.
If you remember an idea from today's episode, let it be this: English is not a collection of words. English is a collection of patterns. Words alone cannot create fluency, but phrases can unlock communication. When you train your brain to recognize patterns, your speaking ability begins to grow naturally.
So the next time you learn a new word, ask yourself one question. How is this word actually used in conversation? What phrases contain this word? What expressions do native speakers use? By asking these questions, you turn vocabulary into real communication tools.
Over time, you will notice something amazing. Your listening improves, your speaking improves, your confidence grows, and English begins to feel less like a school subject and more like a real communication skill. That transformation is exactly the goal of our podcast.
Remember, fluency is not magic. It is the result of consistent exposure to natural language. The more phrases you have, more patterns you recognize. The more patterns you recognize, the easier it becomes to express your ideas. And that is how real communication develops.
So today, do a small experiment. Choose one English video. Listen carefully. Write down 3 useful phrases. Repeat them aloud. Use them in a sentence. That simple habit can slowly transform the way your brain learns English.
In our next episode, we'll talk about another hidden obstacle. Many learners translate every sentence inside their head, from their native language into English. This habit slows down thinking and destroys fluency, but there is a way to break that habit.
We will show you how to train your brain to think directly in English, without translation, without hesitation. When that skill develops, speaking becomes faster and much more natural, and conversations start flowing smoothly.
Thank you for listening to Real Life English. If you enjoyed this episode and want to improve your real-life communication skills, make sure you follow the podcast and join us next time. Because learning English will not feel like a test. It should feel like opening a new door to the world. And we are excited to continue this journey with you.